Some of the toughest working conditions for laborers were seen in the steel industry. Typically, shifts were 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the furnaces needed to be kept running. Once each month, they would receive a day off. This was partially because workers were generally divided into two groups. At the beginning of the month, one group would work a day shift, another would work the night shift. After 2 weeks, they would experience a shift change. The day shift would change to the nights, and the night shift would switch to the days. This allowed one of those groups to have an entire day off. However, this meant the other group of employees would have to work 24 hours straight. Maybe this is why workers in the steel industry experienced so many accidents over the years. There were lots of different people who worked in the factories, men as well as women and children. I'd like to talk about conditions facing women and children next. Child laborers made up an important part of the U.S. workforce. Very often they were sought out because they were paid low wages, and their physical size made them attractive for certain jobs. By 1900, almost 2 million children worked for wages in the United States. Oftentimes, they acted like children and they weren't supervised very much. Therefore, this led to many accidents. Here we see children working in a variety of different capacities. In the upper left, we see someone working in a glass factory. On the bottom right, we see children in the textile mills. There were many children who worked in southern textile mills doing a variety of different jobs. Women had always worked in farming communities, however they had a unique role in the factories. Very often employers would seek out women because they believed that they could pay them less than their male counterparts. By 1900, 17% of the workforce was female. By the 1890s, with the invention of the telephone and the typewriter, women with a high school education could have additional opportunities and could work under safer conditions, as shown in these images here. Next, we can explore the emergence of unions in the late 1800s. People responded to the conditions that they faced in those factories in a variety of ways. One was to organize unions. One of the first important unions was the Knights of Labor. This was founded in 1869, and membership expanded under the leadership of Terence Powderly. One of the things that made the K of L very unique was that membership was open to all laborers, and by the 1880s they had over 700,000 members. Now there were a variety of goals that they sought to bring about in the United States. Among them included equal pay for women, an end to child labor, and they also wanted to limit Chinese immigration. There was one limit to membership in the Knights of Labor. The Knights of Labor took a strong stance against Chinese immigration because they saw many of the Chinese workers as competitors for the same jobs. In fact, in some western states, like Washington, in the 1880s, there were movements against Chinese members of the community. The Knights of Labor also sought an 8-hour workday and a graduated income tax at a time when there was no federal tax on people's incomes. Conflicts between labor and management, which led to violence, hurt the Knights of Labor. The best example of this would be the Haymarket Square riot, which took place in 1886. In May of that year, workers in Chicago held a series of general strikes to, among other things, rally support for an 8-hour day. Later, when police broke up a battle between striking union members and non-union strikebreakers, 2 unionists were shot and killed by police. On May 4th, strike sympathizers held a rally in Haymarket Square. A bomb exploded and 7 police officers were killed, as well as 4 demonstrators. Association with violence like this hurt the Knights of Labor. Below are some hyperlinks to additional information, as well as images associated with the events which took place at Haymarket Square. While membership in the Knights of Labor waned by the late 1880s, a more focused union, the American Federation of Labor, was able to be more successful. This was formed in 1884 with Samuel Gompers as its head. Instead of being open to all workers, this was a union of skilled workers. They had similar goals to the Knights of Labor, but with a little bit different focus. They also fought for an 8-hour day, but another thing that they supported was employer liability for any injuries that were incurred on the job by workers. By 1904, they boasted 1.6 million members. The bottom line with unions is that in many cases by the late 1800s we see the origins of our modern unions being put in place. However, one thing to keep in mind is that only about 5% of the workforce was unionized by the late 1800s. Individuals, like Andrew Carnegie and many others, fought to break the unions. We'll see union membership grow dramatically by the 1930s. The last topic I'd like to address as I look at the rise of industry would be modern advertising techniques, which became common by the late 1800s. As the nation industrialized, we also see the emergence of modern advertising techniques as different companies tried to encourage people to purchase their products. Companies that we might find familiar, like Quaker Oats and Ivory Soap, got their start during this time period. I happen to like the motto associated with Kodak cameras the best. Their motto was, "You press the button, and we do the rest," to encourage people to purchase their easy-to-use cameras. On the right, we see an advertisement for the Florence lamp stove. Here are two advertisements, one on the left for sewing machines, and one on the right for Duluth Imperial Bread. I think they take a unique approach to trying to encourage people to purchase these products. Here we see an advertisement for electric belts. Look at all the things that it cures: dyspepsia, rheumatism, and even gout. Hey, maybe I should get one of these things. One of the things that I find interesting about these ads is that there were very few regulations established by the national government. We'll see how this will change by the early 1900s. This lecture has addressed the rise of industry in the United States in the late 1800s. We'll conclude with a few final thoughts. Over the course of the time period discussed today, the United States became a major world power, and was led in this endeavor by people like Andrew Carnegie, John Rockefeller, and Thomas Edison. One group which should not be left out of this story, however, would be the individual laborers upon whose backs the nation's economy was transformed. Workers in the U.S. had to endure long hours and dangerous conditions just to make ends meet. Some joined unions, but many others didn't have this chance. One final thing to consider would be the question: did the benefits of industrialization outweigh the costs? What do you think? Well, have a great day. The next couple of slides will show some of the sources of information that I used for this lecture, as well as some hyperlinks to additional information about the rise of industry in the late 1800s. Take care.